All right, we live. Let me fix my screen here. Okay, I'm starting to get a little bit savvier with this. I don't know, savvy is quite a strong word for this, but getting a little bit more organized with these daily tune-ins. So I want to invite you as we wait for people to come online, just to put in the chat if you're available to do so, where you're from, and Quebec, Canada. I love it already. That's really exciting to me. I say it for every daily tune in. I don't know how long I'll be super excited about it. Hopefully for a while, but you'll just have to bear with me as I just process having people on here from all over the world. It's really exciting and it doesn't go by unnoticed. And I'm really grateful for you all being here in Switzerland. The coolest thing, Pittsburgh. All right, I know Pittsburgh. I went to West Virginia University, so every once in a while we take a little party trip up to Pittsburgh, and I still have a lot of friends in that area. So welcome Pittsburgh and Texas. Austin's in the. I feel my husband made fun of me because he was in the other room the other day and he heard me go after I got off. He makes fun of me all the time because I think that I'm much cooler than I am, and he always reminds me in a very kind and funny way that I'm really not as like funny as I think I am. But I said the other day, someone's in the house. He made fun of me, so now I'm not really all that worried about it, but it was funny. We had a good laugh. I was like, "What? Like that's what we used to say back in the '90s, and in the young 20s days of my life, when we'd be like, what? So and so's in the house, and apparently that's not cool when you're in your late 40s. But I'm gonna keep it cool. So I was also really quickly, take about 30 more seconds. Nashville, hi Leanne. Nashville, I love Nashville too. Is Tootsie still in Nashville? I had a really good time at Tootsie's back in the day. My one and only trip, actually, it wasn't my only trip, but my last trip to Nashville was really fun. We saw a really good guy at Tootsie's that was pretty spectacular. I don't know if he made it or not in Nashville, but yeah, it is. It's kind of, I think it's one of those staple things like the broken spoke in Austin. But my beautiful friends last night on a beautiful circle that I'm a part of suggested that I offer a buy me a coffee link here, which I hadn't heard of, but apparently, not but, and apparently, there's these beautiful sites that are set up for creators to take tips, so to speak, for content that they provide. And I come on here every day. I mean, it's been a few months now, and I know the feedback has been really great. So if you are getting value from these daily tune-ins, I just invite you to buy me a coffee as a tip. And for me, that's a cup of cacao that we have. My husband and I have a cup of hot chocolate every single day. Here in Ukraine, we go to our favorite cafe and have a cup of cacao, and we just sit and we watch people walk by, and it's kind of a beautiful moment for us. And we've had, it hasn't been hard. It's kind of been hard here in Ukraine for us. This is the phase where it's kind of like has been our cocoon phase, where it's been the messy part. So we've been purging a lot and working through a lot of discomfort that we've had in our lives. So although it's a beautiful country and this town is amazing, it's where we've done a lot of work. So we're kind of like, oh. So the hot cup of cacao every day has been that warm cup of comfort that I think a cup of coffee will bring most people, or a cup of hot chocolate. So if you come here and you have a good time, or you learn something, you take some value, I invite you to visit my buy me a cup of coffee. What's it called? Buymeacoffee.com. I put the link in the chat. See, I'm getting advanced on this stuff. So I invite you to do that. And if that's not your jam, that's totally cool. Then just like and subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment. Tell me your biggest breakthrough, or anything you'd like to see covered on these daily tune-ins around the topic of ascension and energy, and how we can maximize, or any questions you have about maximizing this massive growth spurt that we're all in. So I'm going to get started. So we got more Canada. And speaking of musicians at Tootsie's, it is the tip jar. Yeah. So Tootsie's, musicians have tip jars. There's like so many beautiful creatives out in the little square here in Mukachev. And like they open up their case and they do their thing, and people leave tips if they get value. So this is the same thing coming online. Is this is my creative endeavor, and I really enjoy being here. So thank you for being a part of it, whether you leave a tip or not. So I want to get started because I got a lot more juicy stuff for you as well today. And of course, I got my little drawings that I'm going to share with you just to kind of give you some visual perspective. It's talking about energies and talking about consciousness is this like this, it's not tangible. It's this ethereal thing that comes from feeling alone. And because much of our existence in the third dimensional realm of reality has moved us away from the feeling part, and kind of desensitized us from the energetics of life. We have been more into the intellectual, tangible, prove it kind of stuff. And everything that we talk about here on these daily tune-ins is about energies and frequencies and consciousness. So I try to, as best I can, kind of put story to it, or put a visual to give it some context. So I do have some of that for you today. But first, I want to take you back in time a little bit and tune you into a time in I'm going to say in our country, in our globe, in our planet, because no matter where you live, where you are, we've got a lot of, not a lot, we've got a lot in the grand scheme of everyone on live here. We have Canadians. Welcome, you guys. Thank you for being here. So no matter where you are, you had ancestors at one time that pioneered into new realities, into new physical realities. So I'm going to talk more from the United States, but just kind of keep that perspective from wherever you are. And in our history, we have learned how people pioneered and came from other lands to brand new lands, and came to America to um, to live, to tap into a new life, into a new world. And they set off on ships, and these ships, they had to say goodbye to family, and many men went first and pioneered on these ships and went through a lot of turmoil. As we know, back in the day, it wasn't just a quick crossing. There were storms, and the ships weren't fully equipped sometimes, so there was illness, and there was a lot of challenges that were met on that trip or on that voyage. And then to get to the new land and have to figure out life there and rebuild and find where they were going. And many kept pioneering and went across the country to the Wild West to settle the western states of the United States. So these pioneers went through a lot of growth. They went through a lot of challenges. They had to find themselves. They had to leave family, and they had to establish something new to then support their families in coming over to that new world. And there was a lot of faith that these pioneers had to hold in order to leave what they knew to go to this new world. You can probably see where I'm going to here, but the topic of today is all about being spiritual pioneers. We are in that same process, in this ascension process. So as these energies have built since 2012, these higher and higher frequencies have continued to build, and many of us have been on this journey, whether we kind of knew what it was called or not. We've been on an awakening journey. We've been doing the work spiritually to come up into a higher frequency of consciousness, which expands our consciousness, connects us into a higher realm of existence. The more we expanded into those higher realms of existence, the more this 3D reality started to feel a little bit more oppressive. It felt heavy. The systems that we were operating in started to feel uncomfortable, whether it be our home life, trying to keep up with it all and keep all of the facades going on, that we were expanding our lives but going to jobs that weren't always healthy for us. Our balance, our work life balance started to become unhealthy, and which then throws everything off. So that world started that reality started to get extremely heavy and dense for many of us. So we started to open up to the question of what is this life about, and what are we here for. And we started to explore that. So many of us, if you're tuning into this is probably somewhat your story. So many of us started to be like, man, if you could see my guys, they're like, yeah, this life is making me crazy. So we started to kind of walk the path up into the fourth dimensional reality, where we started to feel our way forward. We started to go into the space of like, what do I want for me? And some of us, this is the purging play. The fourth dimensional reality is where you start purging those denser areas of life. And we started to let go of relationships and jobs and systems and the old paradigms that were keeping us feeling oppressed and keeping us feeling depressed. Because when we feel depressed, it's because something is not being expressed within us. So when we get to this reality, we start purging all of that is depressed within us, so that we can express ourselves more. And as we hit 2012 and that change, and we started our planetary ascension went into the photonic belt, which took us literally into a planetary orbit where the energies were higher than we've ever been. Well, for 26,000 years, every 26,000 years we go through this photonic belt. So this is what is creating these massive changes within us, these massive changes within our systems. And we then started to open up consciously. And since then, in his last year, I talk about it almost in every single daily tune in. These energies that have been hitting us are like no other. Last night, or the last the Schumann resonance has been down for 33 hours. It just came on earlier today for me today, in the middle of the night for most of you. But for 33 hours, great change. Everything changes at 33. So as I tuned into that today, the message that I kept getting is something big happened. There was a massive, massive shift in those 33 hours. It was like a timeline shift. I don't know what that looks like. I just feel that there was something that kind of took us into a greater reality, a greater like a speed up of this reality of awakening. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that. I'm going to get into some more tangible information, but I wanted to set the stage of what the history has been. So what's happening now is, as many people have gone into that fourth dimensional realm and started to purge and started to get healthier and healthier, now it's time to really move into that fifth dimensional reality, where this is where we're pioneering to. This is the spiritual pioneers, are those who left this world to go into a new existence. This is 4D reality, is kind of the ship, so to speak, because this is where the turmoils happen. This is where the life hurdles happen. This is where our tower moments happen, because this showed us what all needed to be purged from our lives and purged from our paradigms of thinking and acting and believing, and all of the old operating systems of us. And all of the clearing happened here. And now we're kind of moving into, through this ship, so to speak, the fourth dimensional reality is the energetic reality of us. It's the part of us that is the energetic portal between the spiritual part and between the physical part. So this has been like, we have gone through this 4D portal, which has been extremely beautiful. It's like that. This is the space that is like this massively beautiful place to be, because you just see so much more. and you feel so much more, and you have you like the energy that builds is like the beauty of life is there. And at the same time, when all of that's happening, you start realizing how much time and energy was wasted, not wasted, but how much time we spent on so many things that weren't important. And so this is the hard part, because then we have this, this duality going on, not in the separation part, but we have these two sides going on. We're like, oh my gosh, I just love life and I'm so grateful for it. And at the same time, in that gratitude, we're also purging all of the old paradigms that we've brought in here. Those old paradigms can't go into that new world because they don't exist there. This new world is where love and community comes back together, where the true values of life exist. And it's about the community. It's about, being in the family unit. It's about spending that quality time, with, working. Everything becomes less. This is a fragmented world. This is a unified world. And the two don't go together. You have to either live in the fragmented world, or choose to be in a more unified world where everything just kind of flows and works together. So this is what's happening in this moment. We are the spiritual pioneers that are now being called, so to speak, into service this year. I've talked about, since Monday, I've talked about kind of the overview of 2022 and talking about some of the predictive models of events that are probably going to take place in some form. And when that happens, those that are still very much still anchored into this 3D reality are going to have, a great awakening to the truth. They're going to start seeing what this world is really about. And right now, because of everything that is happening, remember in the last couple of weeks of December, we were talking about how the energetic, the spiritual brain centers were really starting to get, calibrated and activated to the higher frequencies. So there was a lot going on. The 12 power centers were activated and will continue to come online throughout this year. I do have a hypno meditation in the Ascension Bank for that, and there's also a daily tune in, if you didn't see that, that explains what I'm talking about. That's back in December, the last 2 weeks of December about. So you can go back and watch that. But in every single human being, there are 12 power centers of the fifth dimensional, DNA are coming online. So for these people that are still in this fragmented reality, what is happening is now they really do have a dual side to them. They are in a position of, like, they have a massive inner battle going on. The one side of them is hanging on to the old paradigms. They're like just gripping onto life, kind of trying to keep it normal, right? And these are the people who are like, just, do what you're told so we can go back to normal. They're still hanging on to what life has always been. And yet what we are finding out in our awakening, that every part of, not every part, but majority of life has been very deceptive and has been very manipulated, and we haven't been as free as we were thought we were. On the other side of what's happening with them is these power centers are coming online. So as they come online, as consciousness grows, more and more truths come to light quicker and quicker. This is the mass awakening. So these people who are in this, embedded in this 3D reality, they are feeling like this. Whether you can see it or not in them, many of us have friends and family that are there. We have tried to, to awaken them, but it's most of the time it's not up to us to do that for our friends and family, because we just see each other as we've always have been. And we've talked about that. Like, there's going to be other tentacles of light that will help them, but still we know what's happening within them at this point. And what we can pretty much know for sure is majority of people in this world are in a great inner battle and are in great pain. and they will be projecting this pain out. They will be projecting the fear out because they don't know what's going on. They want to hang on, they want life to be normal, but at the same time, they're really trying hard to not see the deception and the manipulation in their own life. And a lot of that is how they've manipulated themselves into not seeing things they needed to see, how they've deceived themselves. And as this starts to expand within them, then they're going to see it in their own reality, and they're going to see it in their world. And then that is the great pain. That is when the pioneers who those of us who've already been through this growth phase, we've already seen this stuff, we've already been through the purging of all of that. And as we make our way into this new reality, we start building this for ourselves, which then multiplies and expands into a collective. This is happening, but at the same time, all of these people are going to be needing support. And this is not where we go back and say, well, I told you so. Because remember, in a unified world, in a unified consciousness, that's not what we're about anymore. This is where we come back down and say, I will help you. I understand what you're going through. And we give of our empathy and our compassion, and that is then what accelerates the great awakening. So the pioneers of the spiritual awakening are those of us who are ready to serve, who are ready to support. And this is what we have been brought to this time on this planet, in this moment, to do. We are the ones that we've been waiting for. You've seen that certainly in a million memes, and it's so true. We're not waiting for anyone to step up. We are the ones that have to step up, and we do it individually in our everyday life. So right now, the collective critical mass of awakening has been met. So we've also heard the light has already won, but like a lot of us are like, what does that even mean? Like, where is it? But we are it. And what happens is in those higher realms of consciousness, that is much more powerful of energy in supporting the masses than we think. So the formula, I learned this from Greg Braden a bazillion years ago, and I remembered this formula because and how I did, because I'm not a math person, but when I do the math on things like this, it's pretty astounding how small of a fraction of a collective has to hold the same intention for it to create massive change. So the square root of 1% of a collective holding the same intention will change everything. So that number of our global population, our global collective, is a very small number, and we had to have a collective that could hold the light, so to speak, energetically of our planet, for then the planet to create that massive awakening. We have reached that mass point. So now in 2022, that massive change now, with everybody waking up more and more and more, being supported by the spiritual pioneers that have done this work, and we're ready at this time to support the masses. We can now move forward in restructuring realities, restructuring our own lives individually, restructuring our systems and our collective global reality. That's what we are going to start seeing in physicality, in tangible manifestation this year. So the 12 fifth dimensional solar strands of DNA, this is the biogenetics of codes that project the full divine potential of 5D humans. So this is what we are now fully activated into our fifth dimensional DNA is fully activated now. Every single human being has it done. So if they are in a very dense state still, and this fifth dimensional DNA is activated within them, there's going to be a lot of unrest in them, because something has to give. Either they've got to purge the densities and come up to rise up to meet that fifth dimensional potential, or not. So whatever that means for them, if they aren't willing to do the work, They may exit in some way or just simply give up. But majority of people are going to now have to be called into action to ascend into these higher frequencies, because our planet has already ascended, is already way above the normal frequency that she has been in for millennia. And now everyone has to come up to speed, and everything underneath that frequency is being shaken loose. So we are the pioneers. We are going to support and show the 3D awakeners, those who are waking up. I was talking about this yesterday. We are now going to create our own realities and our own communities, and we're going to start seeing new technology come out that is in our highest and best good, technology that has been hidden from us, new technologies that will give us higher access, but safer access to global connection. So like the internet, but internet in a higher consciousness, so that we are now being supported by technology as a whole unified collective. So this world is really going to start to be developed now, and this will then give these people down here something to see, tangible manifestation, so that as we are creating this in our own lives, in our own worlds, then we can then show these people down here that it is safe to start to let go of this world, that there's something to step into. That is the mission at hand. That is where we are going with this. That is where we as the pioneers have to hold and anchor in the energy in which we are in at the moment, so that we can hold this collective energy and allow this mass awakening to rise up and start to create global I don't want to say change, because I feel like that's overused, but to create a whole new global reality, quite frankly. So remember that the nervous system is still calibrating to these energies. So if you do have energetic or like ascension symptoms, if you're feeling jittery, if you're still having headaches, remember a lot of that's still settling in, so that new circuitry is all creating a new magnetic pull, like continuing to pull you up and pull you up and pull you up into those higher frequencies. That's still happening because we aren't yet fully grounded and anchored into this high fifth dimensional frequency, which starts at 40 hertz. So we are still not, I don't even say we're not close and make it sound like it's negative, but, we're still working our way up from this fourth dimensional reality into, we're in here. And, some people are touching in and grounding down and still calibrating. So we're still doing our own energetic work to anchor into those higher frequencies and higher frequencies. This is going to be happening for a little while, because the earth has had to come up to speed, so to speak, with the photonic belt that we are in. It's a lot of words, a lot of information. Let's see what people are saying. Yes, had massive insights a few hours ago. Ooh, those are fun, right? And typically take a little bit to process. So sometimes those massive insights come, and then you sit with them for a couple of days, and they just keep sinking in and sinking in and sinking in and going deeper and deeper. And then you're like, what in the world? I love those. So take time. Who was that? Nicole. Yeah. So make sure to drink lots of water to anchor in those insights, that new light that came in. There's new knowledge and wisdom, and that is unique to you, that has messages about your particular, pioneering mission, what your role is, however it came in. But just know that there's a lot of coding within those insights. That's super exciting. Isabel said, working at a job in a 3-day is getting really hard to make sense at this time. Any tips to keep up? Still need to feed the family. Yeah. This is a tough one for me to answer, because I realize that the 3D programming is very fear-based around, feeding the family. I did just, kind of touch on this yesterday. there comes a point where that pain will get so bad. It's like the pain of, I remember somebody telling me this when I was in my first marriage, and it was painful at that point. And someone said, when the pain, I think it was Tony Robbins that said this, when the pain of staying is greater than the pain of leaving or not knowing, then you'll something will happen. I think I just butchered that, but eventually it'll get so bad, probably, that you'll have to make a choice. And I know that feeling really well. I was in that for a long time, where I in corporate America, and just working jobs, and it got so painful that I was like, I will figure it out. And it wasn't easy, and I had a family to feed as well. But leaving, I finally, the pain of staying at a job like that got to be so bad, and that's when I learned, when I quit. And then I, tried a couple of part-time jobs that didn't work out. They were as painful as well. And then I started doing the work that I'm here doing with you today. It's very different than what it was, but it was also kind of the same. But that's where I learned that that whole adage of "you're always taken care of" is true. That is where faith is built on knowing that you are taken care of. And we have been very much deceived that money is how we are taken care of. And yes, we are, however, when you have faith, and money has been my thing, like that has been my biggest fear. And I had to go into, places this past year where money ran out. And somehow, like through, I was always taken care of, miracles always came in. And now I've got such faith in it that it just, I now see that I'm always taken care of. So even when I go down to those levels where I'm like, oh, this is uncomfortable, I don't have that fear anymore. So this is all part of the process, Isabel, to maneuver in your own discernment about when is it time for, it's healthier for you to leave a job and walk in faith and trust than to stay there. Me and the family are planning a move to Alberta this summer from New Brunswick. Good. Okay, good. And yeah, there's a lot of relocation. There's a lot of pioneers, so to speak, that are feeling the call. I'm in part of a couple of groups, and there's a lot of feeling. There's a lot of a magnetic pull to move locations. And remember, from a higher perspective, an energetic perspective, this whole mass awakening of our planet it has been prophesied for thousands and thousands of years. And everything has been set up energetically for us to maneuver through this time. However, there are also, those of us who are understanding this, there are places, there's an energetic grid around our planet. And there has to be, a whole collective holding the light, so to speak, in their geographic location on the planet. So it's amazing, as people are kind of moved around, it's kind of exciting to think, and not think, but to remember that we are all being moved around for a specific purpose. Our souls are pulling us into our soul space so we can hold the light in a specific place on the planet. So I'm with you on that, and it's mind-boggling sometimes. I'm like, I don't know where I'm going, but then when I kind of step back from that, I know and have faith that I am going to wherever I am required to hold the space and hold the light energetically for that specific planet. So when coming to Ukraine, I was like, what the heck? This is like the weirdest place, like for me to go. And it was kind of cool to experience it. But at the same time, it's been a difficult place. And yet when I remember to come back into the higher plan, there's a reason why I had to be here to hold the light for this place for the time that I'm here. So Lisa, one of the oldest root canals I have, was in pain for a few days, so I chose to have it pulled yesterday. Good. Purging, right? It's crazy. Like the purging that many of us have gone through have been so like weird, but not weird. It's been emotional, and it's also been physical as well. So I feel like I completely am looping my time. I'm not sure what that is, but there is some weird time stuff going on. Some days will feel like they fly by. Night times are interesting. Remember, linear time is a whole construct of the human, the humans have put that whole thing on. But like night times can feel really, really long sometimes, and sometimes really, really short. So there is this that we are changing realities energetically, so that does this quantum physics is at play here. So time is doing a weird thing. So each of us will have a unique experience with it, but many people will wake up and be like, man, that nighttime seemed like it was so long. But remember, at night when you're sleeping, that's when majority of your work is being done. It happens in the astral, it happens in sleep times. The projection of the daytime is simply just a projection of the work that you've done in the evening while you've been asleep, while the conscious mind has been tuned out. The unconscious, the superconscious, is doing a lot of work in recalibrating and bringing you into the higher frequencies, and energetically doing work with you. Your teams, your guides are doing a lot of work when your conscious mind is asleep. So when you wake up, it could have been much longer of a night than like, oh, I got 4 or 5 hours of sleep. It could have been much longer, because that is 4 or 5 hours of sleep is a linear construct of the human mind. Really interesting stuff. Tomorrow I'm going to go into your part in this mass awakening, how you are being trained, what this training may look like, what it feels like. And from there, I'm going to then on Saturday in the Ascension Bank, I'm going to be taking our members through a hypno meditation to make contact with those guides, with your teams, so that you can have more of an intimate, meet and greet, have an understanding of these teams, because whether you know it or not, whether you're conscious of it or not, you are being trained for this time. And you're being trained for the mission and your part in this mass awakening and in this time. So I want to help people to connect tonight here, and just actually it's my tonight, but in just a little bit, I'm going to be doing an Ascension Circle in the Ascension Bank, which is a weekly gathering that just started last week, where we come together in a circle and share our unique experiences with this process. Also, just becoming vulnerable and understanding like what this process is for you uniquely. It's not me talking; it's us all sharing together and supporting each other in our individual journeys. It's a beautiful and sweet circle. So I'd like to invite you over to the Ascension Bank to check that out. It's $22 a month. It's it's pretty inexpensive to get some pretty unique and intimate support on this journey. So I invite you over there. Until then, y'all, thank you for being here from all over the world. Super stoked to have you. If you have questions, send them through comments, and I can address them. And then otherwise, I will see you back here tomorrow on the next Daily Tune In. Mwah! Take care, everybody.